Dear students, in this module, we are going to study the osmoregulation, its concept, and the different mechanisms by which the animal maintains the water constituents and water contents within its cells and the salt concentration within their body. Then we will see the different examples of the osmoregulation, and we will discuss the different specific terms to define animals based on their mechanisms to maintain the cell concentrations of the salts. Maintaining the steady state or equilibrium in the internal environment of the aquatic and marine organism is very challenging because the external environment is changing quickly, so the animal has to respond quickly and abruptly to bring that state back to its normal. So much is done involuntarily. So this process of homeostasis or osmoregulation is involuntary process. The animal does not have to uh, consciously do activate or deactivate different systems. It is all maintained by different hormones, enzymes, and different input receptors and the brain by itself. So little physical action is required. However, we can pick up and move is still an option. It means that if the animal is unable to respond to a very wide change in the environment, so they cannot bring it back to its normal, they have the chance to move away from those conditions. So the few definitions, the solute homeostasis, which we will use later in this lecture. Solute homeostasis means the maintaining the equilibrium with respect to a solute, like ionic or neutral solutes concentrations. For example, salt concentration within the body. First, this is called solute homeostasis, and if the body maintains the water levels within its system, this is called water homeostasis. So the different environments have different conditions which animal has to respond. For example, if the aquatic animals like fish, they are living in marine environment which is more salty, the water is more salty and high in water salt concentrations, the animal bodies respond differently to preserve their internal water as compared to those fishes which live in freshwater ponds or streams where the salt concentration in the external water is different. Right, so we know that the principle of osmosis or diffusion, where that the solute or the solvent, they move across the gradients, right? So in the fish in the marine environment, that salt concentrations are very high in the external environment and very low in the internal environment of the animals, so they can passively come into the animal's body and damage the animal tissues. So they must have a mechanism to secrete excessive salts from their body, and at the same time most of the animal's body water will go out of the body without any effort by that passive movement by diffusion, because water concentration is higher in within the animal as compared to the external environment. So you see here marine environment has 34 parts per trillion salinity, which is about 1000 milliosmolar per liter, and as compared to the fresh water, which is less than only 3 parts per trillion salinity or parts per trillion salts within water. Right, so these two are very different approaches, which we will discuss in the next upcoming slides. So let's talk about the osmoregulation in aquatic organisms. Animals that are incapable of regulating osmotic pressure of their body fluids are called osmotic conformers. Right. So here we are going to discuss few more terms. If the animal does not have a specific mechanism to maintain the internal water contents, so we call them as osmotic conformers. It's just like a term as in the cold-blooded animals which are unable to maintain their body temperature. So what they conform to the external temperatures. बाहर जितना temperature होगा animal body का भी उतना ही temperature रहेगा. So similarly, osmotic conformers are those animals uh, which have the equal amount of the salts and water concentration within their body as compared to the external environment in which they are living. Right, so they do not have the ability to control the high or low levels of the salts in the external environment, so they conform to that levels. Their skin is highly permeable and have the least control of ionic movements, right? So exactly, so these are the such animals where the salts can freely move in and out, so that comes to natural equilibrium that conform to the external environments, and so as for the water contents. Now, but there are few changes, few differences in the animals. Some animals have the ability to withhold and withstand the larger range, a wider range of the change in the external environment, right? So those animals which can survive between very low to very high salinity in the external environment are called euryhaline animals, right? So they tolerate a wide range of salinities in external environment, for example, the shore crab, and those which have the ability to tolerate a narrow range of the salinities in the external environment are called stenohaline animals, and these are spider crabs. So होता क्या है कि, for example, the spider crabs can tolerate the uh, salinity, and I will explain it in this slide. There you see. Right, so this is a graph which represents this example, right? On the x-axis, you see this is the normal seawater concentration. Basically, this is the salt concentration of the seawater, starting from 200 to 800 millimolar. And this is the salt concentration of the body fluids, from starting from 200 to 800 millimolar, right? So if we draw a diagonal line from 0 to the maximum, so this is a diagonal line, and this is called isotherm or conforming line. So the animals which cannot maintain their internal conditions different from the external conditions, as we explained earlier, are known as osmotic conformers. So they will lie on this line. ठीक है, अगर external water में concentration 200 millimolar होगी, so the animal body will have 200 millimolar. If it is 400, the animal bodies will have 400. If it is 800, the animal body will have 800. Right, but this is an example of spider crab. So this has the ability to tolerate this range, and whenever this concentration, and this is these 2 points tells that this crab can maintain its life between 400 millimolar to about 650 millimolar, yeah, 650 millimolar concentrations. As the concentration, as the salt concentration in the external water exceeds from 650 millimolar or reduces from 400 millimolar, this crab will die, right? However, the shore crabs, they have the ability to withstand up to 200 millimolar and up to 800, about 750 millimolar salt concentration. So they are more sturdy and more resilient to the change in the external environment as compared to the spider crab. So in this example, the spider crab is a stenhaline animal and shore crab is a euryhaline animal, right? So that is about the ability to tolerate the external environment. Then there are a few other terms, those animals which lie on this isotherm line. This is the same graph which I just have explained, but different values. So the external concentration in percentage 0 to 60%, internal concentration 0 to 60%. So the isotherms are those animals who can survive only on this line, right? So this is osmotic line. So then there are few animals which can tolerate the which can maintain their high concentration within the body as compared to the external environment. So they are called hyperosmotic, osmotic animals, and those who can uh, maintain the low, who have the less concentrated internal environment as compared to the external environment. They are called hypososmotic animals, right? Hyperosmotic and hypoosmotic. Here in this example, you see the hyperosmotic, when their external environment has 0% salts, their internal body has still 30% salts. External environment goes to 10%, 20%, 30%, their internal environment still 30%, right? So they are hyperosmotic. यहाँ तक क्या होगा कि इंटरनल बॉडी में सॉल्ट्स ज़्यादा है, एक्सटर्नल वाटर में सॉल्ट्स कम है. लेकिन जब हम इन एनिमल्स में आते हैं हाइपोसोमैटिक में, सो दे अगेन हैव 30% salts, right? But the external environment has 40%, 50%, 60%, so which is higher than that of the animal's internal body. So it tells that the animal's body has less concentration of the salts as compared to the external environment. So they are called hyposomatic animals, right? So the examples are the freshwater fish, which live in the medium where there are less salts. So they maintain more salts within the body. They are hyperosmotic animals, and those fish which live in the seawater where there are high salt concentrations in the water as compared to the internal environment, so they are called hypoosmotic animals, right? So until now we have discussed 3 or 4 different terms. We have discussed isoosmotic, hyperosmotic, and hypoosmotic regulators, and stenhaline and euryhaline animals, right? And we have discussed the examples as well.